as the huge burst of energy gradually dispersed the surrounding gray clouds and lights up the entire dead city in an ostentatious fashion. Every freshman of the Imperial University who had been holding their breath in hiding suddenly stared at the explosion in the sky, some in amazement and admiration, others in worry that it would cause trouble, and a few were indifferent. But almost everyone was curiously wondering what expert had that level of insanely flashy entrance, unaware that this supposed expert was one of their own. Only Chu Zhou and Lu Qingzhu were familiar with this high-profile appearance. And speaking of these two, in a building somewhere, a pale-faced Lu Qingzhu looked at the blue light explosion outside the window and already knew he had entered this dead city. However, she was in no condition to leave where she was hiding. Unlike Chu Zhou, who was already rushing towards the location of the explosion with a sword in hand, he knew that Yi's flare had made him the focus of the entire city. Anyway, back to Yi, the arrogant fucker looked at the restless city and realized he had not only attracted the attention of his teammates, but their enemies as well. Right on cue, Yi heard the sound of footsteps nearby, and at some point, a strange figure wearing black clothes and a white pig head mask had appeared behind him. In this mysterious person's hand was a rusty chain, at the end of which was a blood-stained long knife. Seeing this strange-looking man, he could tell at first glance that he was no good. So without any hesitation, blue flames came out of Yi's feet, leaving a scorching mark on the floor. Then, accompanied by a sonic boom, he was upon the guy in an instant. He punched directly at the opponent's pig-headed mask with his atomic fist, enunciating his intention to rip the guy's head off. But unexpectedly, the moment Yi's atomic fist hit his target's head, the long sharp knife in this mysterious person's hand also stabbed him in the abdomen, directly ignoring his martial arts shield and Demora's skin defense. But surprising enough, Yi's atomic fist, which was thousands of degrees high and could even melt steel, only managed to just submerge the pig-headed man's head in blue flames, but didn't really burn it off. The pig-headed man clenched the handle of the sharp knife that had stabbed into Yi's abdomen. He exerted force with his arms, trying to cut Yi's body open, but no matter how hard he tried, he failed to swing the long knife. In fact, his sharp knife was stuck in Yi's quickly healing muscle layer. The pig-headed man immediately wanted to retreat, but Yi grabbed the rusty iron chain wrapped around the pig-headed man's arm tightly and pulled him towards him. The guy's strength wasn't much, but his weapon was very special. It seems to have the ability to ignore any defense. He grinned mischievously and questioned what the hell the guy was. He then grabbed this strange-looking guy's pig-headed mask with both hands and opened his pig-headed mouth, declaring that it was time for his oral surgery. He should stop resisting and open obediently. What followed next was a blue beam of high-temperature light gushing out of Yi's mouth and pouring directly into the guy's pig-headed mask. The pig-headed man struggled violently with his limbs, but no matter what he did, he could not break free from Yi's firm hold. As the smell of burnt barbecue wafted out, the pig-headed man finally stopped struggling. But his pig mouth had been pierced by the atomic breath and his neck had been melted by the high temperature. Holding the pig's headed mask, he declared himself as an honest person. He did what he said he would. But in that moment, he also noticed something inside the mask he was holding. He pulled out a green pendant from the wide-open mouth of the pig's headed mask. With this, Yi was convinced that everything was actually a trial of the Imperial University, and they were probably supposed to kill monsters for loot. Also, the long sharp knife which was logged inside his abdomen shatters into tiny fragments in that moment. It seems the masked person's weapon must have been blessed with the martial energy of a high-level warrior, making it extremely sharp. Once the martial energy faded, the weapon reverted back to an ordinary item. He stared at the pendant in his hand, thinking of how to pass the trial arranged by the Imperial University. The entire setting felt like a battle royale. So did he have to find a bunch of masked enemies and take the pendants from their masks? Just then, he sensed an arrow aiming towards the back of his head. But before the arrow could get any closer, a ferocious evil shadow instantly rushed out of Yi's body, opening several bloody mouths from all angles, stopping the arrow and biting it into pieces. He looked in the direction where the arrow came from and saw another masked figure with crossbows. Already pissed off with the earlier ambush, Yi rushed forward with the intention of ending this fucker's existence when suddenly, a sharp spear pierced through the concrete ground directly in front of him and pierced his heart. Then the masked figure also seized this opportunity and shot several sharp arrows directly at Yi's vital points. After getting rid of the pig-headed man, he hadn't even had time to catch his breath before he was surrounded by murderous intent from all directions, but it was still a bit too naive to think of taking him down this way. Yi roared angrily and summoned the power of the humanoid giant from his monster template. Intense flames and steam burst out from his body, and huge ribs grew around him, woven with a burning new colossal figure entirely enveloped in dark and red evil spirits. The masked figure with crossbows, clearly scared shitless, stared at the insanely massive fist descending upon him like a freaking meteor. He roared as his explosive punch shattered the entire building into a cloud of dust and debris, and with it, the masked figure with crossbows. Most of the freshmen watched the chaos from afar, wondering what was going on for an entire building to collapse so suddenly. He walked out of the dusty debris with the spear in hand. He wanted to see the person who nearly skewered him like a kebab. And in that moment, the person in question appeared in front of him on his own initiative. This time around, the person was wearing a red-eyed rabbit mask and a black suit. In his hand, he held a brand new spear. It seems that as long as these masked men's bodies are not dead, their weapons can be regenerated continuously. The guy bent his legs, and his calf muscles bulged as big as a balloon. Then he exerted his entire body strength to jump and flew towards he like a cannonball, his spear aimed at him. He raised his leg and tried to kick the rabbit-headed man mid-air, but his body was too soft. Before the force of the kick could hit the rabbit-headed man, he spun in the air and changed his trajectory with his spear still aimed at his target. He was stunned to see this. The mysterious rabbit-headed man knew martial arts. What the hell? Just as the spear came about a few centimeters away from He's stunned expression, a familiar chill joined the battlefield. And with the power of the ice element dragon, a massive ice wall suddenly blocked the spear of the rabbit-headed man. So, under the shade of a couple ruined buildings, Chu Zhou announced his presence by encasing the rabbit-headed man with an ice wall several meters high. With his spear in hand, the rabbit-headed man looked around in confusion when he suddenly sensed an attack from above. This attack was from none other than Chu Zhou, who comments on how close he was from being speared in the head. He should leave this battle to him. The rabbit-headed man managed to evade Chu Zhou's attack when he pierced the spot the target initially was with his sword. As countless ice shards erupted from underneath the ground, the rabbit-headed man jumped out of the encased wall of ice. And while in the air, it counterattacked with his spear. The sword and the spear collided multiple times in an instant, creating dazzling sparks in the air. In a few seconds, the two men fought dozens of rounds with the weapons in their hands. Sparks flickered in the dark space. Even though the rabbit-headed man had the advantage with his spear weapon, he could not gain an advantage over Chu Zhou's superb swordsmanship. In another sword fight, Chu Zhou released the power of ice and successfully froze the spear in the rabbit-headed man's hand. After the weapon was briefly sealed, the rabbit-headed man quickly fell into a disadvantage. Chu Zhou seized this opportunity and punched the rabbit-headed man in the chest with his open palm. Although the rabbit-headed man was sent flying, he still managed to block the full force of the attack with his frozen spear. It tried to retreat quickly, but a sudden pair of large hands that had been patiently waiting reached out from the shadows and grabbed him tightly. He, back in his colossal humanoid form, was finally able to catch the little cutie who had been evading him like a scared, terrifying bunny he was. What followed after was another massive burst of martial and unstable atomic energy that lit up the surrounding gray clouds, and again, broke through the silence of the city. Only this time around, a couple ruined buildings was destroyed in the process. Countless freshmen who were attracted by the previous explosion were silently paying attention to any commotion in He's direction. Meanwhile, as the scene shifted to a strange urban space a few minutes ago, two freshmen who were in a temporary alliance were hiding in a building not far away. Wondering why there was no movements in He's location after his flashy presence, a freshman asked his partner if the guy who barged in so ostentatiously was dead. He must be his partner, a female freshman replied calmly. They had had over a dozen people ambush those masked men, yet none were injured. And on top of that, their weapons could break through any defense. They were simply opponents beyond their current level, and they had no way in dealing with them. That guy who came in blasting skyward and started talking trash was too arrogant. He must be a student from a small city, definitely a local, who got into the Imperial University by sheer luck. A frog in a well and probably full of self-importance. To be honest, the top scholars in big cities were simply not on the same level as those in small cities like them. Also, she heard that Yan Zhengxiong and Ouyang Zhe from Magic City, Xin Liu's from Deep Blue City, and Xin Chan from Liuli Island have already started hunting down the masked men. But she really doesn't know how they did it. The guy was amazed at how insanely strong these freshmen were. But doesn't that imply that the freshman champion would be one of them? The lady disagrees resolutely. Every freshman president have always been a local from the imperial capital. And against those Huadu prodigies, students from other regions of Xia Kingdom were no match, and therefore could not compete at all. The martial arts cultivation resources they have received since childhood are worlds apart. It was in this moment that the two were interrupted by a sudden loud explosive blue beam that lighted up the entire city. The two freshmen looked up at the sky, both stunned. Because this exaggerated blue light streaked across the sky, dividing the gray sky into two. The two looked at each other, both confused. What was that powerful beam just now? Was it an electromagnetic cannon? But how could there be an electromagnetic cannon in this city? In another corner of the city, the new students who were actively tracking the animal-masked men also stopped and silently looked at the exaggerated beam of light in the sky. Yan Zhengxiong placed the broadsword in his hand on the ground, and the huge weight caused the blade to pierce a dead horsehead masked man and sink directly into the ground. He kicked the horsehead masked man under his feet and looked at his good friend and the top scholar in Magic City, Ouyang-Zhe. Ouyang-Zhe was wearing a black jacket with a white sweatshirt underneath. At this moment, he was wearing the hood of the sweatshirt and staring at the blue beam of light in the distance that had penetrated the sky. Yan Zhengxiong asked of Ouyang-Ze's thoughts on the blue beam. Ouyang-Zhe answered that the attack method doesn't seem like the masked man style. It's most likely some newcomer's method. New student? Yan Zhengxiong repeated with a slight edge in his tone. You see, apart from those freshmen from the imperial capital, there really wasn't anyone else who could possess such exaggerated power. Yan Zhengxiong truly couldn't comprehend this unexpected development. Yan Zhengxiong suggests they go check it out. After all, they have already collected the pendants of rat, dog, monkey, and horse. Shin Liyu's from Deep Blue City has at least one goat pendant. Zinchan from Liuli Island has at least one snake pendant. And a female freshman named Lu Qingzhu seems to have killed the Minotaur and obtained an ox pendant. If the masked men are really arranged according to the 12 Chinese zodiac, then there are only 5 pendants left. Pig, rabbit, chicken, tiger, and dragon. As for the dragon, it's undoubtedly an absolute monster. Definitely a creature that could kill anyone with one touch. It's obviously a boss that can only be escaped and not fought. As for the remaining pendants, there are definitely a few of them in the mysterious freshman's place where those blue beams were released. Zinchan and Shinliyu's will most likely be attracted over there as well. Ouyang-Zhe told Yan Zhengxiong that the game had entered the final round. If they want to win, they had to snatch it from the others. As Ouyang-Zhe made this bold declaration, half of his face was shrouded in the shadow of his hood, and an obvious flame of ambition flickered in his pupils. Meanwhile, as the scene shifted back to Yi and Chu Zhou, the duo had successfully obtained the rabbit pendant. The rabbit-headed man took the full force of the atomic breath at close range and was vaporized without any resistance, leaving the pendant which remained intact. Seeing the rabbit pendant in Yi's hands, Chu Zhou felt a little confused and asked for clarification, wanting to know what the pendant was. He answered after a brief consideration. Before Chu Zhou arrived, his friend had already killed a guy wearing a pig head mask and got a pendant with a pig shape carved on it from his mask. If he had to guess correctly, this trial should be about collecting all the pendants in the heads of these animals. This made Chu Zhou ask if they were going to proactively hunt for the masked men. Exactly, he answered upon hearing this question. On the rooftop just now, another mysterious figure shot an arrow at him. It must be another masked man. Apparently, the masked figure with crossbows survived and escaped during the chaos. He clearly remembered the exact location where the arrow was shot at him, and he intends on finding the masked figure and settling the score. The two quickly came to where the archer used to be and found no traces of the masked figure with crossbows. But since Yi was hit with his arrow, he can track him with it. After a while of intense tracking and searching the dead city, they came across what looks like a battlefield. It seems someone has already gotten to their target first. Chu Zhou looked at the traces of the fierce battle on the ground, and it seems that the damage was caused by some high-temperature attack which was particularly eye-catching. He touched the scorch marks on the ground, and it was very warm, which meant that the opponent had not gone far. The next moment, Chu Zhou's ice demon dragon bloodline gave rise to a strong hostility. An ice crystal dragon aura automatically appeared on the surface of his body. Chu Zhou clenched his fists tightly and slashed out with a sword in a certain direction based on his instinct. A 10-meter-high ice front rose from the ground and crashed straight into the air somehow, and with it a pained sound from a fellow freshman, Shin Liyu's. In a calm yet disappointed tone, she stated that her optical invisibility got detected.